everybody. So when we last left off with George, he just had an idea of what to do about his mean grandma. And I asked you guys, his idea was to make her some medicine, because medicine is supposed to make you feel better and be better. And his grandma's not very good. So I asked you guys, what ingredients do you think George would put in his new medicine? And I got a wide variety of answers. It was very interesting. Some of you said nice things like sweets and glitter, because he's trying to make her nice. And some of you went the opposite way. Slugs, caterpillar, cabbage, snails, flower petals, something that fizzes, vinegar and acid. What else do we have here? I got lots of great answers. Bugs. Ooh, some people said chocolate and ice cream, but also bugs and insects. A lot of disgusting stuff. Pills and animals, cockroaches, and other gross things. So we'll see which of those comes true, because some of you are right on it with what things he's going to put in there. So let's see what happens with Grandma. Chapter 3. George begins to make the medicine. George took an enormous stewing pot out of the cupboard and placed it on the kitchen table. "George!" came the shrill voice from the next room. "What are you doing?" "Nothing, Grandma," he called out. "You don't think I can't hear you just because you closed the door? You're rattling pots and pans." "I'm just trying to tidy up the kitchen, Grandma." There was silence. George had absolutely no doubt whatsoever about how he was going to make his famous medicine. He wasn't going to fool about wondering whether to put in a little bit of this or a little bit of that. Quite simply, he was going to put in everything that he could find. There would be no messing about, no hesitating, no wondering whether particular things would knock the old girl sideways or not. The rule would be this: whatever he saw, if it was runny or powdery or gooey, it went in. Nobody had ever made a medicine like that before. If it didn't actually cure Grandma, then it would anyways cause some exciting results. It would be worth watching. George decided to work his way around various rooms at one time and see what they had to offer. He would first go to the bathroom. There are always lots of funny things in the bathroom. So upstairs he went, carrying the enormous two-handled pot before him. Hold on, guys. I'm going to go close my window. It's loud outside. Hopefully that's better. Upstairs he went, carrying the enormous two-handled pot before him. In the bathroom he gazed longingly at the famous and dreaded medicine cupboard. But he didn't go near it. It was the only thing in the entire house he was forbidden to touch. He had made solemn promises to his parents about this, and he wasn't going to break them. There were things in there, they had told him, that could actually kill a person. And although he was out to give Grandma a pretty fiery mouthful, he didn't really want a dead body on his hands. George put the stewing pot on the floor and went to work. So, that's a pretty good idea, because medicines are pretty dangerous if you don't take them the way your doctor describes. Not so good. Here's George carrying his stewing pot. But I'm going to say don't do any of this at home. The rest of it isn't very safe either. Number 1 was a bottle labeled Golden Gloss Hair Shampoo. He emptied it into the pot. "That ought to wash her tummy nice and clean," he said. He took a full tube of toothpaste and squeezed out the whole lot of it in one long worm. "Maybe that will brighten up those horrid brown teeth of hers," he said. There was an aerosol can of super foam shaving soap belonging to his father. George loved playing with aerosols. He pressed the button and kept his finger on it until there was nothing left. So here's George in the back room, picking out things to put in the pot. A wonderful mountain of white foam built up in the giant pot. With his fingers, he scooped out the contents of a jar of vitamin-enriched face cream. In went a small bottle of scarlet nail polish. If the toothpaste doesn't clean her teeth, George says, then this will paint them red as roses. A nice simile there. Red as roses. Comparing the red that her teeth might be to roses. He found another jar of creamy stuff labeled hair remover. Smear it on your legs, it said, and allow it to remain for 5 minutes. George tipped it all into the pot. There was a bottle of yellow stuff inside called Disworth's Famous Dandruff Cure. It went in. There was something called Brilliant for cleaning false teeth. It was a white powder. In that went too. So already this would be very dangerous to drink. He found another aerosol can. Nevermore ponging deodorant spray guaranteed, it said, to keep away any unpleasant body smells for a whole day. She could use plenty of that, George said as he sprayed the entire can full in the stewing pot. This stuff sounds expensive. He's making one expensive medicine. Liquid paraffin, the next one was called. It was a big bottle. He hadn't the faintest idea what it did to you, but he poured it in anyway. That, he thought, looking around him, was about all for the bathroom. On his mother's dressing table in the bedroom, George found yet another lovely aerosol can. It was called Helga's Hair Set. Hold 12 inches away from the hair and spray lightly. He squirted the whole lot into the pot, and he did enjoy squirting these aerosols. There was a bottle of perfume called Flowers of Turnips. It smelled of old cheese. In it went. And in, too, went a large brown box of powder that was called pink plaster. There was a powder puff on the top, and he threw that in as well for luck. He found a couple of lipsticks. He pulled the greasy red things out of their little cases and added them to the mixture. Oh, I would not be happy if he was throwing my makeup in there. Not that I wear it that often, but it's expensive stuff. The bedroom had nothing more to offer, so George carried the enormous pot downstairs again and trotted into the laundry room, where their shelves full of all kinds of household items. The first one he took down was a large box of super white for automatic washing machines. Dirt, it said, will disappear like magic. George didn't know whether Grandma was automatic or not, but she certainly was a dirty old woman. Here is George in the laundry room, adding all sorts of things to his large pot. I'm honestly surprised the pot can hold all that stuff. But then again, this is a fiction story. She was certainly a dirty old woman, so she'd better have it all, he said, tipping the whole box full. Then there was a big can of well-waxed floor polish. It removed the filth and foul messes from your floor and leaves everything shiny and bright, it says. George scooped the orange-colored waxy stuff out of the can and plunked it into the pot. There was a round cardboard carton labeled flea powder for dogs. Keep well away from the dog's food, it said, because this powder, if eaten, will make the dog explode. Good, said George, pouring it all into the stewing pot. He found a box of canary seeds on the shelf. Perhaps this will make the old bird sing, he said, and in it went. Next, George explored the box of shoe cleaning material. Oh, here is George with the flea powder and the canary seeds. Just dumping them right in. Seems like he's having a lot of fun. Next, George explored the box with shoe cleaning materials, brushes and cans and polishing cloths. Well, now, he thought, Grandma's medicine is brown, so my medicine must also be brown, or she'll smell a rat. The way to color it, he decided, would be with brown shoe polish. The large can he chose was labeled dark tan. Splendid! He scooped it all out with an old spoon and plopped it into the pot. He would stir it up later. On his way back to the kitchen, George saw a bottle of gin standing on the sideboard. Grandma was very fond of gin. She was allowed to have a small nip of it every evening. Now he would give her a treat. He poured the whole bottle in, and so he did. Back in the kitchen, George put a huge stewing pot on the table and went over to the cupboard that served as a larder. The shelves were bulging with bottles and jars of every sort. He chose the following and emptied them one by one into the pot: a tin of curry powder, a tin of mustard powder, a bottle of extra hot chili sauce, a tin of black peppercorns, a bottle of horseradish sauce. Ooh, sounds spicy. There, he said aloud. That should do it. George! Came the screechy voice from the next room. Who are you talking to in there? What are you up to? Nothing, Grandma. Absolutely nothing, he called back. Is it time for my medicine yet? No, Grandma, not for about half an hour. Well, just see you don't forget. I won't, Grandma, George answered. I promise I won't. Chapter 4. Animal Pills. At this point, George suddenly had an extra good wheeze. Although the medicine cupboard in the house was forbidden ground, what about the medicines his father kept on the shelf in the shed next to the hen house? The animal medicine. What about those? Nobody ever told him he mustn't touch them. Let's face it, George said to himself, hairspray and shaving cream and shoe polish are all very well, and they will no doubt cause some splendid explosion inside the old geezer. But the magic mixture now needs a touch of the real stuff, real pills and real tonics, to give it a punch and muscle. George picked up the heavy 3/4 full pot and carried it out the back door. He crossed the farmyard and headed straight for the shed alongside the hen house. He knew his father wouldn't be there. He was out haymaking in one of the meadows. George entered the dusty old shed and put the stewing pot on a bench. Here is George entering the shed. I know I've said it a couple times. Do not do this at home. No one will be happy. We don't want anyone to have to go to the hospital now. But I'll keep saying it. I agree this is a funny book, but it is definitely fiction. He entered the dusty old shed and put his stewing pot on the bench. Then he looked up at the medicine shelf. There were 5 big bottles there, 2 full of pills, 2 were full of runny stuff, and 1 was full of powder. I'll use them all, George said. Grandma needs them. Boy, does she need them. The first bottle he took down contained orange-colored powder. The label said 4 chickens with foul pest, hen gripe, sore beak, gammy legs, crockle riflets, egg trouble, broodiness, or loss of feathers. Mix 1 spoonful only with each bucket of feed. Well, George said aloud to himself as he tipped in the whole bottle full, the old bird won't be losing any feathers after she's had this dose. The next bottle he took down had about 500 gigantic purple pills in it. 4 horses with horse throats. Oh, that's funny. Horse, like the animal, is spelled H-O-R-S-E-S. Horses. Horse, like the sore sounding throat, is H-O-A-R-S-E. So they're homophones. That's pretty funny. For horses with horse throats, it said on the label, the horse-throated horse should suck 1 pill twice daily. Grandma may not have a horse throat, George says, but she certainly has a sharp tongue. Maybe they'll cure that instead. Into the pot went 500 gigantic purple pills. Here is him pouring in his pills. Then there was a bottle of thick yellowish liquid for cows and bulls and bullocks. The label said, will cure cowpox, cow mange, crumpled horns, bad breath in bulls, earaches, toothaches, headaches, hoof aches, tail ache, and sore udders. That grumpy old cow in the living room has every one of those rotten illnesses. I think it's kind of funny the way he calls her the different animals as he's putting in the pills. Birds and cows and whatnot. Has every one of those rotten illnesses, George says. She'll need it all. With a slop and a gurgle, the yellowish liquid splashed into the now nearly full stew pot. The next bottle contained a brilliant red liquid. Sheep dip, it said on the label, for sheep with sheep rot, and for getting rid of ticks and fleas. Mix 1 spoonful in a gallon of water and slosh it over the sheep. Caution, do not make the mixture any stronger or the wool will fall out and the animal will be naked. By gum, said George, how I'd love to walk in and slosh it all over Grandma and watch the ticks and fleas go jumping off her. But I can't. I mustn't. So she'll have to drink it instead. He poured the bright red medicine into the pot. The last bottle on the shelf was full of pale green pills. Do you notice how everyone has a very small dose? You need this much for this much water, and you just pour it on them. But he's pouring in the whole bottle. He's not taking much cautions. The last bottle on the shelf was a pale green pills. Pig pills, the label announced, for pigs with pork prickles, tender trotters, bristle blight, and swine sickness. Give 1 pill per day. In severe cases, 2 pills may be given, but more than that will cause the pig to rock and roll. Just the stuff, said George, for that miserable old pig back at the house. She'll need a very big dose. He tipped in all the green pills, hundreds and hundreds of them, into the stewing pot. Oh, and I just remembered, his grandma is tiny. She definitely does not need big doses of anything. But the kind of nice thing is there are going to be a lot of things in the pot, and she'll only take a little bit of medicine. So maybe she won't get quite as much as we're thinking. There was an old stick lying on the bench that had been used for stirring paint. George picked it up and started to stir his marvelous concoction. The mixture was thick as cream. He stirred and stirred. Many wonderful colors rose up from the depths and blended together. Pinks, blues, greens, yellows, and browns. George went on stirring until it was very well mixed. But even so, there were still hundreds of pills lying at the bottom that hadn't melted. And there was his mother's splendid powder puff floating on the surface. I shall have to go boil it all, George said. 1 good, quick boil on the stove is all that it needs. And with that, he staggered back towards the house with an enormous heavy stewing pot. On his way, he passed the garage. So he went in to see if he could find any other interesting things. He added the following: half a pint of engine oil to keep his grandma's engine going smoothly, some antifreeze to keep the radiator from freezing up in the winter, a handful of grease to grease her creaking joints, then back to the kitchen. All right, so this will be our final short, just 2 little page chapter today. I believe this is chapter 5, the cook-up. In the kitchen, George put the heavy stewing pot on the stove and turned up the gas flame. Oh, wait, here is him in the garage as he walked by and noticed maybe there's a couple things to add from there. Okay, now chapter 5, the cook-up. In the kitchen, George put the heavy stewing pot on the stove and turned up the gas flame underneath it as high as it would go. George, came the awful voice from the next room. It's time for my medicine. Not yet, Grandma, George called back. There's still 20 minutes before 11 o'clock. What mischief are you up to in there now? Granny screeched. I hear noises. George thought it best not to answer this one. He found a long wooden spoon in the kitchen drawer and began stirring hard. The stuff in the pot got hotter and hotter. Soon the marvelous mixture began to froth and foam, and rich blue smoke colors of peacocks rose from the surface of the liquid, and a fearsome smell filled the kitchen. It made George choke and splutter. It was a smell unlike any he had smelled before. It was brutal and bewitching smell, spicy and staggering and fierce and frenzied, full of wizardry and magic. Whenever he got a whiff of it up his nose, firecrackers went off in his skull, and electric prickles ran down along the backs of his legs. It was wonderful to stand in there stirring this amazing mixture and watch the blue smoke and bubbling and frothing and foaming as if it was alive. At one point, he could have sworn he saw bright sparks flashing in the swirling foam, and suddenly George found himself dancing around the steaming pot, chanting strange words that came into his head out of nowhere. He sounds like he's trying to make it magic. There's him dancing. Let's see what he's chanting. Fiery broth and witch's brew, foamy froth and riches blue, flume and spume and spoon-drifted spray, fizzle, swizzle, shout hooray! Watch it sloshing, swashing, sploshing. Hear it hissing, squishing, spissing. Grandma, better start to pray. So that is where we will end today. Next time he's going to finish it off, and then I think he's going to try and give it to Grandma. So if Grandma starts to drink this stuff, what do you think is going to happen to her? We'll see.